Hello my dear students, it's a pleasure to meet you in our educational program of Geology and Environmental Sciences. Today we'll start the second part of our syllabus, the Environmental Sciences. Let's start with the following. The concept of environment. The environmental science program will discuss three main subjects: environmental concepts, marine and terrestrial ecosystem, environmental resources and their limits, and environmental. Let's start with environmental concepts. What do we mean by environment? It is everything that surrounds human beings, from living or non-living components, which affects and is affected by the components and the application of all information from the different fields of study, as physical, chemical, biological, and social studies. It takes care of the preservation of the environment, its good management, and preventing its destruction. Also, it deals with the protection of the population from the adverse effects that may occur naturally or due to the unwise use of man. It includes three aspects mainly dealing with natural environments. It is the environment of man with other living organisms. We have another type of environment which is social environment. It is the environment of man with human being. We have also technological environment. It is the environment of man-made subjects. Let's go to this definition. Define the concept of ecology. Ecology is composed of two Latin words. Oikos means place of living. Logos means study. So ecology means the living organisms, the study of its needs and what is available for him where he lives. Let's go to another term here, which is the ecosystem. Define the concept of ecosystem. Ecosystem is the building unit of the biosphere that describe all the living organisms and the non-living matter in certain area of the nature, and the interaction between living and non-living components. Now, what are the characteristics of the ecosystem? Multiple components, connected relationship, stability with the ability to change, and finally using wastes. Now let's discuss each one of these separately. What do we mean by multiple components of the ecosystem? A non-living factor like natural factors, the ecosystem is composed of living and non-living components that determine the kind of life. Non-living factors are those non-living physical and chemical factors which affect the ability of the organisms to survive and spread and reproduce. Also, we have physical factors. These are factors of climate as light intensity, temperature, wind, location relative to the sea surface, and latitudes. Also, we have chemical factors. These are factors with chemical effect due to the increase or decrease of some elements and chemical components as the acidity, alkalinity, soil salts. We have also living factors. Living factors are all the living organisms in the ecosystem and their effect on each other and on the environment. The living organisms in any ecosystem include three types of organisms. We have producers. These are green plants that convert the solar radiation energy into chemical energy, sorted in the food through the process of photosynthesis. All other organisms depend on the green plants in the direct or indirect way for their food. Also, we have consumers. These are animals that depend on green plants for living and their food. Some of them feed directly on plants. These are herbivorous. And some feed on animals that feed on plants, which are carnivorous. Also, we have decomposers. These are microscopic organisms that feed on dead plants and animal bodies. It decomposes their bodies, extracting energy of the dead organisms for food, leaving minerals and other components to go to the soil. Bacteria of decay and many fungi are examples of decomposer organisms. Without these microorganisms, the dead bodies will remain and the primary materials such as carbon, phosphorus, nitrogen, and others will stay in these dead bodies and will not be available for the new organisms. So, what are the intricate relationships among the living organisms? As you see, my dear students, in the diagram in the front of you, there are different organisms. Some of them are plants, others are herbivorous, others are carnivorous. And there is a web relation of food between these organisms. This diagram shows the complicated of the ecosystem where the biotic and abiotic factors intricate together to produce food web with many food chains. And a stable ecosystem, which is the more complicated ecosystem, is the most and more stable ecosystem, and vice versa. The third characteristics of the ecosystem is stability with the ability to change. What do we mean by the stability with the ability to change of the ecosystem? The stability of ecosystem means its ability to return to its original situation. After any changes, stability of the ecosystem is due to diversity of species in that increase. The mutual relationship among them, that means natural biological balance. If the severe changes happen in the ecosystem, it leads to its disturbance, and having a new balance started to be stable under the new changes. Now, my dear students, this is a part of marine ecosystem, and you can see different organisms. Some of them are plants, others are animal organisms, and all of them having a relationship between and their way of feeding. As you see, we have this connection between the different organisms. They form as a web relationship between the microorganisms and also the large ones. We have very small organisms, we call them phytoplanktons. Now, my dear students, we go to the fourth factor of the ecosystem. The ecosystem using wastes. In marine ecosystems, fish excrete nitrogen wastes, which are used as food for algae, and then fish feed on these algae. Also, marine organisms produce carbon dioxide during respiration, and the use by marine plants during the process of photosynthesis. So, the ratio of oxygen and carbon dioxide remain constant in the water. Write on the environmental effects of light on plants. We have different effects of light on plants. Let's start with the photosynthesis and the process of getting food for plants. The light energy is converted into stored chemical energy. As we said, the green chlorophyll has the ability to absorb wavelengths between 390 and 380 nanometers. And the green blastids or chloroplasts carry out the process to produce the food for the plant and animals. Second, the effects of light. Here is the light and tropism. Tropism is the bending or localized movement of plant parts stored or away from the stimulus due to unequal growth of the plant parts. If the direction of growth bends towards the stimulus, the tropism is positive. However, if it is going in the other way, it is a negative tropism. The plant stem is positive phototropic because its cells grow more elongated far away from the light source, more than the cells that face light. The unequal growth is controlled by growth of regulator of plant hormones or auxins, which grow in the dark more than the light. The third factor here, my dear students, is flowering in plants. By watching the growth of plants, we can observe two plantation stages: vegetative growth stage and the flowering and fruiting stage. Vegetative growth stage, the embryo cells divide during the seed germination, forming the roots, the stems, and leaves. The flowering and fruiting stage, it starts after a period of vegetative growth, forming flowers and fruits. Due to many internal reactions, and actually these two stages affected by the ecosystem factors. We mean here by non-living factors. For example, wheat is usually planted during October and November and flowers during March and April. If it is planted during February and March, it grows vegetatively without flowering. This because the unfavorable environment conditions to the internal changes necessary for the plant to reach the flowering stage. Now let us define the plant photoperiodism, which is the fourth factor. Plant photoperiodism is the relation between the light period and the period of darkness the plant exposes every 24 hours. Plants need less light with a long period of darkness. This is short day plants. We have another plants which need much light with a short period of darkness, which is long day plants. Also we have plants are not affected by light and darkness periods. Now, my dear students, let's go to another effect, which is light and the distribution of living organisms. Write on the effect of light on the distribution of living organisms. Light is a main factor for the distribution of living organisms in the sea and plants. In the sea, the light depth determines the presence of certain kind of organisms. We have an example like algae. As a case of marine flora, algae differs among themselves for the kind and amount of light necessary for photosynthesis. That red algae need relatively a small amount of light. It can make its food at depths of 25 meters. However, brown algae cannot make its food at depths more than 10 meters. The vascular plants cannot live in fresh water at depths more than 10 meters. For the terrestrial organisms, this is very obvious. We have another effect here, light and its effect in animal activity. What are the effects of light on animal activity? Yes, we have light or sunlight has great effect on the activity of animals. According to that, there are 4 photoperiods during the day. We have the dawn period. The activity of the night animals are reduced, so they go to their home. The day period the day animals become active. We have the sunset period. The activity of the day animals is reduces gradually and animals go to their homes. We have the night period animals. In this period, the night animals are active. We have another example here of light on the animal, which is animal migrations. What are the effects of light on animal migrations? Migration is a biological period phenomenon. It occurs by the movement of a certain animal during certain time or season. Kinds of migrations, we have daily migration and seasonal migration. For the daily migration, the wild animal and birds migrate daily from their nests to the feeding areas and return back again. So marine organisms too, some of them move up and down in the water column searching for their food. At night, as crustaceans or laying their eggs in shallow water as some fish. Seasonal migration also it is a type of migration, but in this time in the desert, for our example, birds and reptiles, where the day length affect the size and sexual glands, so the animals search for places with plenty of food and suitable temperature and light to reproduce and return back to their places next season. So this is a migration for reproduction. Now let's go to this question. Give examples of animal adaptation to temperature changes. Spore and cyst in protozoa, germs in bacteria. This is forms for adaptation of temperature. Hibernation of some amphibians and reptiles when the temperature decreases or increases. Summer laziness, it means escaping from temperatures such as mollusks, insects, and some reptiles. Migration of some animals to other areas where temperature is not suitable. Marine and terrestrial ecosystem. My dear students, now we have two major ecosystems. We're going to discuss it. We have a marine ecosystem and a terrestrial ecosystem. For marine ecosystem, it is generally governed by the same physical and chemical factors, the most important of which is the salt content, temperature, light intensity, water depth, water pressure, water movement, abundance of food. These are many of factors very important for the marine ecosystem. Write short account on three of the physical and chemical factors that governed the marine ecosystem. We're going to discuss three of these factors, like temperature. The water temperature is about around 30 degrees centigrade in the warm seas near the equator, and decreases gradually as we move north or south until it reaches the freezing temperature at the poles. The water temperature also decreases gradually from the surface to the bottom, where it reaches to negative 20 degrees centigrade or less at the floor of the deep seas, and it stays without change all the time. Seawater stores large quantities of heat, which is absorbed from the sun rays during the day, and it leaks it at night to space and the surrounding earth. This providing some warmth to the coastal areas, which are characterized by heat stability, which is more than the tropical areas. Far away from the sea, in which the temperature varies day and night and is different seasons. We have another factor here, which is the water depth. Water depth is very important for the changes of the marine fauna and the marine ecosystem. The depth of the seawater varies from few meters at the shore and base to 10 kilometers or more in some oceans where deep canyons are found. But ordinary seas, such as the Mediterranean Sea, has a depth which is reaching to 4,000 meters, whereas the Red Sea doesn't exceed 2,500 meters in depth. The Arabian Gulf doesn't exceed 80 meters in its deepest part. We have another factor here which is very important for the marine fauna in the marine ecosystem, which is water pressure. The pressure of water columns increases by 1 atmospheric pressure for every 10 meters under the water, in addition to the atmospheric pressure at the sea level. If a person wants to live in sea to a depth of 20 meters, for an example, he will be exposed to a pressure which is equal to 3 times the atmospheric pressure. If he dives to 100 meters depth, he will be exposed to 11 atmospheric pressure. And this is impossible to endure without the diving equipment, but the animals that live in the deepest seas have bodies and physical characteristics that enable them to bear this high pressure. In addition to the ability to live in conditions of deep water as severe cold and complete darkness. Marine food chain. Phytoplanktons represent the cornerstone in the production of the food for the rest of the marine organisms. The illustrated layer of the marine surface water are rich in very small or mostly microscopic organisms known as planktons. These are carried by wave without resistance due to its minute size. Planktons include large group of plants that contain chlorophyll. We call them phytoplanktons. They absorb the penetrated light energy to build food substances and thus are considered as producers. Phytoplanktons represent the cornerstone in the production of food for the rest of the marine organisms. They are considered as the first trophic level in the marine food chain. The zooplanktons, like small crustaceans, worms, and different larvae, feed on phytoplanktons. Yes, they form the second trophic level, are considered as the second trophic level. Now, what about the third trophic level? It includes the small fish, crustaceans, and mollusks. The fourth trophic level includes big fish, which feed on small fish and then large fish, so as. Then comes the large fish like the sharks, marine mammals such as seals and dolphins, and they share this level with some marine birds such as seagulls, penguins, and hawks. Finally come the large whale that feed on what it can get from these farms. The man is on the top of the marine food pyramid as he catches different fish, sharks, and whales. Now, my dear students, we come to the end of our today's program. I hope you got benefits from our today's episode. Until we meet next time, have my best wishes and goodbye.